Welcome to the March 10th, 2025 meeting of the Wayzata Planning Commission. I hereby call the meeting to order. My name is Blake Cameron and I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. I have just a few words about how to participate in this evening's meeting. To join online, it's a Teams meeting. The meeting ID is 253-644-362-808 and the passcode is displayed. Members of the public may attend this Planning Commission meeting in person or watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting, in advance, or by logging on to the Teams meeting and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our council chambers and on the cable channel and online. You will be asked to unmute and then you may begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. The city encourages comments or questions about items on the agenda and, when possible, requests that you submit them in advance by emailing publiccomment@wayzata.org, calling city staff at 952-404-5323, or mailing Wayzata City Hall at 600 Rice Street East, Wayzata, Minnesota 55391. Attention, public comment. Next on the agenda is roll call. Planner Quarles, could you please call roll?
Yes. Commissioner Planton? Here. Chair Cameron?
Here.
Commissioner Severson?
Here.
Commissioner Elg?
Here.
Commissioner Van Looy?
Here.
And please note that Commissioners Schwalbe and Ankeny are absent tonight.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Does anyone have any questions or proposed changes to the agenda as displayed? May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Planton?
Thank you. Second?
I'll second. Severson.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. This evening consent agenda consists of approval of the meeting minutes from February 24th, 2025, and approval of the report and recommendation for the preliminary plat at 565 Ferndale Road West, aka Ferndale Bluff. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion. Van Looy.
May I have a second?
Second, Elg.
And I did this out of order, but does anybody have anything else they want to add or pull?
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it and the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is a public hearing item, which is, this evening we have one public hearing, which is the fence variance for 330-335 Waycliff. Planner Quarles, could you walk us through the application?
For sure. All right. So this is a fence variance across 3 parcels, which means we have 3 separate owners, and then they're represented by one applicant, Andy Solstad with Andy's Lawn Care. The project is located in the Waycliff neighborhood, which is on the north side of Highway 12, south of Gleason Lake. The neighborhood is zoned R4 medium density and is guided generally medium density residential. For a little bit more context, because this is a subdivision that was all built as a series of private parcels, it has private streets as well. So you'll see that there are 2 parcels here, one private home, which is half a townhome, another private home, which is half a townhome, and then actually the street itself is its own parcel. So it's broken out that way. And then you can zoom in here and see how it all fronts along Hollybrook Road as well. For some existing conditions, that first image is the tail end of an existing fence on the west side. And then the second image shows approximately where the proposed fence will be if approved. The variance request is that typically when we have front yard fences, which is fences between the house and the street, we ask them to be 4 feet tall and 75% solid. The applicant is requesting to extend an existing 6-foot-tall privacy fence across those 3 parcels. And so that's a variance of 2 feet over the limit and 25% increase in opacity. That black dotted line there is the existing privacy fence, and then that red dotted line is the extension of that privacy fence, which is mostly on that private street parcel and then goes on to that private home parcel on the south side. The engineering department doesn't have any comments on the proposal. The applicant sent a letter notification to the neighborhood on February 25th. The city sent theirs on the 4th. For variances, we don't require a neighborhood meeting, and we haven't received any public comments as of today. As with any variance, we want to ask ourselves, is this consistent with the comp plan? Is it reasonable? Is this a unique property? Is there something special going on that necessitates the need for a variance? And would the variance alter the essential character of the locality? After having a discussion, we'll ask you to direct us to make a report and recommendation of approval with your findings for approval at the next Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Quarles. Commissioners, any questions for staff at this point?
The only question I have is the existing fence is 6 feet and with 100%, whatever,
Opaque.
100% opaque, exactly what I was thinking. Did that fence, do you know if that was built before the requirement for a variance, or if it got a variance, why it's there versus meeting what the rules and regs are today?
My assumption is that, so for multifamily buildings, so more than 2, we typically require a privacy fence. So you can see that the Hollybrook townhomes are over on the sort of northwest side over here. So they would have had probably a fence required at the time that they were built, and I can see it would have been natural for that fence to maybe extend into this parcel here for some reason or another. So I think that fence is pretty far back, pre-existing.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Severson?
Can you explain why it's a front?
Yes, so
Yard.
this has to do with how our fence code is written.
Okay.
Commissioner Elg is familiar with this. So we define, for the purposes of the fence code, a front yard is anything fronting a street, basically. So in this case, even though this is going to feel like the backyard for this particular homeowner or the side yard for this particular homeowner, because it fronts Hollybrook, we have to consider it a front yard and ask for it to be shorter in our code. This means that a lot of corner lots in town end up having to do a short fence on 2 sides, which can be a bit of a burden. In this case, it ends up particularly a little interesting because we've got townhomes and then, as I mentioned, that sort of private street parcel as well.
And I think I read in the packet that there used to be trees and they lost quite a bit. Do you have a little bit more history about why they're, like what happened there, or is that something that they?
Yeah, I can ask the applicant to elaborate on that a little bit more, but my understanding is that there's just been storm damage over the years. So they used to have a lot more screening naturally, and now they don't, hence the request for the fence.
And then just last question, if we pull back a little bit, I think I know, then on the other side of Hollybrook is the freeway. Yes, right there.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, staff. At this point, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and address the commission. Please state your name and address for the record and your role if you're an advisor or other part of the applicant's team.
Good evening. Thank you for having this meeting. My name is Reed Shaw. I live at 470 Waycliff Drive North. I'm on the board of Waycliff Townhomes Association. And with me to answer any questions that you might have are Sue Winsler, who lives at 625 Waycliff Drive North, and she is also a board member for the HOA. And then also here is Andy Solstad from Andy's Lawn Care, which is Waycliff's longtime maintenance and grounds partner and would be installing the fence. His address is 23650 State Highway 55, Loretto. So first, I'd like to thank City Planner Quarles and the city staff for guiding us through this process. We really appreciate it, and I'd also like to thank all of you for devoting the time to consider all of these matters in the way of development for Wayzata. We appreciate it. As was noted, this is an extension of an existing security fence that is put up for that HOA. I don't know how long the fence has been in existence. That portion of the HOA has been in existence since 1994. So I am presuming that it precedes any statute or code that's currently in place. And one of our goals once we decided that it would make sense to do this 136-foot extension was to be sure that there was as much similarity in appearance as we could, and that was the reason for the request for keeping the same height and the same opacity as currently exists in that fence. I should also note, partly in response to Commissioner Severson's comments and question, that the fence is actually located several feet above the sidewalk trail street, which is Hollybrook Road. That's an actual county trail that was put in 3 or 4 years ago, and the fencing is at the top of the hill that looks down on that. And the privacy aspects are both for the residents and street noise and whatever, but also for people going and walking along that trail, because there is a parking circle that backs up along what would be the fence. So it's people walking by seeing cars in that parking area as well. There is a secondary consideration that it would increase security for us. We did have a series of break-ins back in 2021, but the principal reason is to help replace the privacy that has been lost, including a couple large trees this past summer. That was the precipitating cause for us to explore this investment. And it is the HOA that is paying for everything. With that, I think I'll ask if there's any other questions that we can respond to. Well, I think we're okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Reed. Now I'd like to turn to the public hearing. This is really just a time for us to listen to our community for the approval request we are considering. It's part of the process. And, just to be heard, right? It's a great part of, who we are. So if somebody asks a question, we're just going to hold questions until the end. But otherwise, I will open the public hearing now. If you wish to speak, please come forward. If you're online, please raise your hand. Do we have anybody online?
I just have one person in the chat online who wanted to ask if there were any trees that were going to be affected as part of the project, so if the applicant could come up to the podium and just clarify that.
Hi, Reed Shaw again, and the answer to the question is no. There is not any tree affected that is part of the plan.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else?
Not online, no.
Okay. Anybody present? All right. Seeing that, then I will close the public meeting and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or any questions raised during the public hearing that you'd like staff to address?
No.
No.
Seems pretty straightforward.
They note in their application.
All right. Any comments?
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable request. It's an extension of an existing fence, which has helped with, both security and privacy. Keeps the neighborhood consistent with the same look and feel. And I don't think it'll alter the essential character of the neighborhood. So I feel like it's a reasonable request.
Okay.
Agreed, and I don't think there's anything in our comprehensive plan that would tell us that this doesn't fit.
Yeah, I would agree. And as someone who lives on a frontage road, I'm very sympathetic to you all and the privacy. And just in that part of I want to clarify too, in that part of town where it's, abutting up to the highway, it's kind of tucked back in, it's not like a very visible location like on Wayzata Boulevard where we've had some other fence variances. I do feel like it's really reasonable, and there's already a fence there, and it's just an extension. So I think it's a reasonable request, and I think there is some uniqueness to your property in the Waycliff neighborhood that maybe is a little different than other areas of the city, so I'm comfortable with it.
I agree. In this situation, I would want a fence there as well. And the only concern that I have is that the current fence there looks like it's aged reasonably well to this point, and I just wonder how much more life it has in it, and kind of curious about the plans for fence maintenance going down the road. It doesn't look like that was ever treated, and just hope that any future fence is maintained so it has a long, healthy life and has at least an appealing look, so it keeps the neighborhood nice looking. But I think the request is reasonable. Yeah, I live in a very similar situation, and boy, with people walking there every day and the highway on the other side of that path, I would want a little barrier between my home and those activities.
Commissioner Alg raised a good question. I'm going to come back to staff with a question. With that existing fence, where it is today, if they have to replace that, are they going to need a variance for that?
They need a variance to replace it. They wouldn't need a variance to maintain it. So if they wanted to, replace boards, that would be fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable, and having been by there, there's like a huge gap, kind of right at that end, right where those 3 parking spots is. So I mean, can totally see it and would support it 100%. So. Sounds like we have a consensus. Can I have a motion to direct staff to prepare a report and recommendation for approval of the variance for the fence?
Okay, yeah, I propose to make a motion to direct staff to prepare a draft planning commission report and recommendation with the appropriate findings reflecting a recommendation of approval on the application for review and adoption at the next planning commission meeting. Oh, and look, it was right there.
Second, Elg.
Thank you, commissioners. Any further discussion?
None.
No?
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion passes. The draft report and recommendation will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting, and after adoption, will go to the city council for their consideration. Thank you, applicants, for your time tonight, and for members of the public who submitted the question about the tree. That concludes the public hearing portion of our meeting. Next on the agenda tonight is other items. Planner Quarles?
I will defer to Planner's Weber for a review of development activities.
Planners Weber.
Thank you. I know I mentioned it, this project a number of times in the past, but the multifamily portion of the former Wells Fargo, which is at 910 Wayzata Boulevard East, that underground garage, the walls are starting to appear. Still be a couple weeks to months before you start seeing the multifamily building itself, but it's moving along, which is good to see. One project you probably haven't noticed much activity of yet, but should soon, is kind of kitty corner at 150 Broadway. They're doing the utility and foundation work now, but should start to see some walls come up soon. Then we have 2 complete applications that you'll see at the next couple of planning commission meetings, including at the March 24th, we have the 200 Lake Street. They actually do have their neighborhood meeting scheduled this Thursday here in the council chambers. That's intended for, the neighbors surrounding their property and anybody else interested in the public. And then we have a request for the XL substation up at, I believe it's 701 Central Avenue North. It's right on the edge with Plymouth. They are actually planning on removing an existing piece of equipment and replacing it with a communications tower that is a private communications tower only to provide XL the ability to communicate with their other infrastructure. That will be the first meeting in April. Then finally, we have a couple development staff-related updates. First, Community Development Director Alex Sharp did start last Monday, but he had a pre-scheduled holiday here this weekend. So March 24th will be his first Planning Commission meeting. So feel free to welcome him. And then for the second, I will turn it over to City Planner Quarles.
So March 24th will be Community Development Director Sharp's first Planning Commission meeting, and it will be my last Planning Commission meeting. I've accepted employment at the City of St. Paul as a senior city planner, and we'll start in April, so that means I'm wrapping up here in Wayzata in March. So we'll go out with a bang at our March 24th meeting with the TCF project, and then from there I just get to come here for fun. So it has been, and I'm doing the it has been stuff because I'm sure I won't want to waste anyone's time with it on the 24th, but it has been a pleasure working with this and prior planning commissions, and you guys are a model for how planning commissions should function. So thank you for providing me a great place to learn.
Congratulations, and thank you for all that you've given the city.
Yeah, congratulations.
We'll miss you
Yeah.
a lot.
In terms
Our-
of schedule updates, our next meeting is the 24th.
That's our next meeting?
Yep.
Okay. All right, next meeting is the 24th. Thank you all, public, for your participation in this evening's meeting. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff. That concludes the meetings, the items on our agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion passes, and the March 10th, 2025 Wayzata Planning Commission is adjourned.